I never teared up more from a book than the end of The Return of the King, so that might be worth
It's
reading
like,
it.
because you're actually going on the journey.
This is something I love about books. Break!
I think you're
Were you tearing up?
I think you're right.
That's something to keep in the video.
Yeah, I thought you were.
Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode of Old and Word. I thought we'd do something a little bit different today. I've got my brother here, who you probably remember from my Pyrenees video. Just a general vlog about how to get into reading and struggles with reading.
Yep, hello everybody.
Yeah, and I've got Stephen here, friend, long-time friend.
Hello.
So we thought we'd do something different. Now we've written a list of questions, just general things about books, might be broader than books as well. We're just going to go round, or we don't have to do it necessarily in a round sort of cycle or
Keep
whatever.
it free form.
Yeah. We're just going to ask each other about books and try and get into develop a discussion about reading and maybe even writing if you've got a question on writing. Let's start.
What do you plan to read next? What are you reading at the moment?
I'd hope to read. So you got the Jungle Book from me, didn't you?
Mhm.
For the birthday. Was it last birthday? I think it was. Last
Yes.
November. I hope to read the Jungle Book. I'd always wanted to read the Jungle Book.
When was Jungle Book? Right.
Jungle Book was written in like 1800s, so a while ago, like maybe 1890, I think.
Is it Rudyard Kipling?
Rudyard Kipling, yeah.
Is it written as a children's book?
It's written
Or
as
is
a
it-
children's book, but it's obviously in that like archaic style.
Mm.
It's like very like aloof and sort of waiting.
To me, if it was nothing like the films, like it's completely different.
Well, I know nothing
It's
about
very-
it. Maybe should
it's,
read
it's
some
closer
passages.
to like
It
Tolkien.
reads like Tolkien, like it's really like
Really?
yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, it's very like because like Ka would be like this cold serpent, like, this,
Yeah.
like speaking like archaic language and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to read that. I was actually going to read that after Stephen goes. So Stephen's down for about 4 days or so.
Mm.
I'm going to read the Jungle Book eventually.
And you're not reading anything right now?
Not reading anything right now. The last book I read was a thoughtful theism review, which I did a review for that about a week or so ago.
Did you enjoy that one? I imagine you
I
did a review for it.
so,
Yeah. Sorry, I've not actually watched that one yet, but I'll
that's
get
a
into
good.
it.
I
'Cause
think it's about
I do watch all your reviews.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm going to read the Jungle Book. I'm not sure what it takes me weeks to get into to get the new book. So
and what was the apologies? I can't remember. What was the book you had read before Thoughtful Theism?
oh God, see the problem is so it's probably a question that we're going to bring up, but I find that even for me that books are so few and far between. It's actually hard to remember.
You read a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if you forget.
That might just be an artifact of the fact that like I produce the videos and it seems like a big thing, and I'm always talking about to get this book or to get that book, but in reality I don't actually read that many books. I think it might have been it wasn't Dominant Animal, which is I didn't like that book at all.
Did you do a review for that?
For that? Oh, it was Exhalation by Ted Chiang, the sci-fi collection.
What was it? Oh, just a collection of sci-fi.
Yeah, that was real good.
And you did a review for that or no?
It should be the last book that
I haven't seen that review either.
Yeah.
I will get round to it.
That's a good one. I would actually recommend that you would read that.
Yeah.
Are you much into sci-fi books, or
It's actually
what books do you generally tend to go for? Like, is there a genre specific or?
No, I would say no. I'm not a big reader, but I would generally just have recommendations from people, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested.
I'd say
pretty
I'm
much any genre.
Yeah,
really.
I'd say I'm the same as
I
you.
don't really have a massive preference. I'm always kind of lean a little bit more towards kind of sci-fi.
Right.
Not sci-fi, sorry.
Like
fantasy kind of.
Yeah.
Something.
There are a few things I've mentioned about Exhalation, but we might go into it later, just if I'm giving a recommendation at the end, which is why I think you might be interested. But
When you say that, so that book, that sci-fi book, the collection of stories, is it like high sci-fi where it's like?
The thing is, it's not like June or anything like that. It's more like social.
Which
like
I'd consider
families. It's like family and that. It's like
So quite low.
very low
technology.
It's like technology and like social questions and stuff. That's why I think it's quite interesting.
Okay.
I do prefer that to high
Like
sci-fi.
it's not like Halo or Dune or whatever.
Yeah.
June.
It's not like a space opera.
It's not like a space opera.
You're not reading Star Wars, for example.
Yeah. So is that was one of your questions, wasn't it?
Yes.
I've got a question for I'll go with Ryan. Now, Since you read Piranesi, it still stuck with you?
Not as much as I thought it would, but it was a great book. I really love the character of Piranesi.
The character sticks with you, yeah. The problem is, I might get onto this later on, but when I read books, I think I was actually saying to you, Stephen, just not long ago, I forget the names of books that I even genuinely love. Like the King of Earth and Storm.
Your head's just swimming with books and offers and stuff. So,
yeah.
The viewers may be interested to know that when we did a review of Piranesi, that our dog had actually ripped up the book just before we started recording. But I have went out and gotten a new.
Yeah. Is that a better edition than you did before?
It's the same, I believe.
Same one. I think I actually mentioned the dog ripped
It's
up.
the same edition.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I do prefer your hardback.
I got a nice one. Yeah. So yeah. So it's still obviously names and plot details fade over time, obviously, but it's like a kernel of.
I genuinely remember I don't want to say anything for Stephen because he's still reading it. Do you plan to? How did you find Piranesi from what you've read? I know you've had to take a break for various reasons.
Yeah. How many pages did you read of chapters?
I believe I got around halfway, or just
halfway.
Halfway, I think.
And I believe you plan to start again just because you've had to take a break.
I was interrupted. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I admire that because most people would just pick it up and but you want to get back into it straight
I
up.
feel like the most important part of a book is immersion. And
Yeah.
You need to start. You have to.
Yeah,
you can't take a break.
Well,
a story like that.
I've got a friend, Richard, I've mentioned on the channel, who actually he sort of tackles multiple books at the same time. He's reading like.
I couldn't do that, Richard.
I know. Yeah, because I like to get into one thematic world, like one full thing, and really go into it. But then he's reading he's listening to Gormenghast, and he read a book by China.
And why does he do that? Is that just to get as many?
I think he said something like it's like scatterbrain type thing, where he just wants to get more stuff. Where for me, it's like
I can understand that, but for me,
kind of always viewed books similar to films, where I couldn't watch half of a movie.
Yeah,
and come back a week later and watch the other half.
You have to, you have to know the details and all that sort of stuff.
Have you ever jumped from book? I know you just said that you prefer to read one in its entirety, but do you remember?
I have no, but I recall reading two books at the same time when I was working in a position that allowed me to read about 8 hours a day.
Right.
So when you can read that much, it is possible to read more than one book at the same time.
Do you know what books they were? What is this a long time ago?
I can't remember. Not really.
No.
I have the same problem for remembering books I've read.
Yeah.
I mean, if I said a book to you that you read a few years ago, would you better remember when you read it?
No. Okay, so. Okay.
I have a question that I've actually been really curious to ask you.
Let's see if we can answer it.
If you could forget an author and all their works, so you could reread them again for the first time,
we'd read them again. My brain is so negative that I thought you meant something about a really bad book that I want to forget.
Just so you could reread them again, and a whole author's work.
Well, I'll guess for Taylor,
You can guess
but I might be wrong. I might be completely wrong. So I'm going to say Tolkien, but. So what's the question? If you could start from fresh, so you get all the experiences again.
Books, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many. For me, it just seems obvious, but for you, you might have some hidden.
If it's going to be Tolkien, I would prefer maybe the second answer then.
Yeah,
it feels like a little too.
My gut feeling. I'm not just doing this to get you to read it.
Is it here? Oh,
really? My prediction was
wow.
Gormenghast.
That was actually so powerful that I got little goosebumps. Just like here it is. This is the book that I would read again out of all the books you've read.
Because I'll tell you, got King of Elfland's Door there. Yeah, it's you're very good point when you mentioned Gormenghast, right? But there are issues with Gormenghast, and it's a whole thing to get into. But I think as a neat sort of package, it feels like a dream world, pure fantasy, pure.
Just distilled
pure
fantasy.
Adventure.
I like that word, adventure.
I think King of Earth.
And that's primarily because I wasn't saying book, I was saying author.
Did you say author?
Yeah, but that's
what. So you meant like
the whole author's works.
The whole oeuvre of an author's work. Sorry, completely forgot.
And sorry, I'm really sorry.
Well,
but
we got the single book question.
who's the author of King of Elfland? Is it
Lord Dunsany.
Lord
Dunsany.
Dunsany?
So I missed your question then. To read the oeuvre again from scratch. That's a different question.
And it can't be Tolkien. So who do you really
That
love?
implies. See, that's the thing. I haven't actually read that many. I don't read big series. I don't really read things that like. Because I've read the King of Elfland's Daughter. And I've
Remind me
read,
about, for me, and I don't know that much about authors and stuff, but Clark Ashton Smith, how much does he do?
Yeah. So, well, the thing is, I've only really read one collection from Cass.
That's a fair enough answer. Like if you want to forget an entire collection just so
I
you can
think
enjoy it
I'm
again.
still going to go with Dunsany because it's King of Elfland's Daughter plus his collection of like the Manage for Shy, Pagana, all that sort of stuff that I really enjoyed. I just don't know if that's 100% sure, but it's a good question.
Well, when we do this again, I'm sure we'll.
Yeah, hopefully the light's still good there. Stephen's a bit blown out on the exposure, but not too bad.
So Lord Dunsany, that's a good answer, man, and a good question.
Good question.
What do I have next? So Taylor, I have been wondering, because I know you've talked a lot about this in the past in previous videos, but what genre are you interested in most at the moment?
It's obviously one of those ones that fluctuates. I seem to go from sort of fantasy to weird, and sometimes I go when I'm in like a darker mood or whatever. I go for horror, like something like Adam Neville or whatever, or Richard Gavin. But then I go through like more sort of classical, sort of classic, sort of like more like happy mode. So I'll go from like Hemingway, Old Man and the Sea, and I'll read like non-fiction books. I think it's quite miscellaneous. I know you're probably not going to be happy with that answer, but it's sort of miscellaneous, honestly.
And that lines in with Jungle Book.
So obviously, since I'm doing like the nature vlogs and all that sort of stuff, broadening out the channel, I thought that I might as well try and get back into Jungle Book and all that. So it's very miscellaneous.
Fair enough. No particular genre at the moment.
Yeah. Stephen, I'm going to ask you just about Piranesi again.
Okay.
Obviously, your work is like the main sort of like impediment to reading that, isn't it? And
I would
obviously,
say
you're
I'd say it's a baby.
no. I was going to say that as well. By the way, I was actually going to say that as well. But
That's actually, sorry, I think it just leads on to an interesting question. Is it worth reading a book if you cannot get fully immersed in it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because it's something that I've tackled with a lot of times, and I find that the experience can be completely marred.
Didn't you try to read Frankenstein for a bit and you went, nah, this is not working at the moment, or something like that?
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've tried to get into a book, and because of constant interruptions or noise or any kind of thing that just can, and I find it very difficult if I can't give a book my 100% full uninterrupted attention for the entire reading time.
Yeah.
I find it doesn't work, unlike other forms of media.
Is Piranesi the book that you will eventually get back into, or where you think that maybe King of Elfland's Daughter is maybe better, or whatever?
My intention is to
just finish it because you're already halfway through.
Yeah, my intention is to start again and finish that, and then the King of Elfland's Daughter is.
That's good.
Next read.
Yeah. So anyone else got a question? I've got still a few to go.
Well, I mentioned Immersion, which kind of leads on to one of my questions, which is maybe a little bit open-ended, but this is going to be incredibly impossible, but which book did you find to be the most immersive, the most that you just got lost in the pages completely all the way through, and why do you think it was that?
Because when you're reading the Silmarillion, you can't get immersed because it's like you're reading a Wikipedia article, so it can't be that.
So I actually already know my two answers, but it'd be
I'm very interested to know if it's in your book, because I feel like they have a slight advantage to me because of the writing style.
Oh, well, yeah. So it's more like third person, like in the moment.
It's clearer.
Sort of less
you're not bogged down in the archaic
it's also
language.
kind of, it can just be clearer, it can be easier just to read. And
so the thing is that it's obviously it's at risk of being very boring, but I'll try and give you a better answer.
I'm genuinely interested to learn this.
And so just to make sure, it's the last book I was properly immersed in.
No, the most
The most
book
immersed,
ever.
The most that you've really got lost in the pages.
Gormenghast.
Is it?
Gormenghast. I love it. It's one of my favourite books.
And so when you sat down, you felt yourself, you
just
became
disappeared.
you became the book.
Gormenghast. I told Richard on a friend of his. I told Richard he's obviously got him into it. He agrees with me as well. It's like I tried to describe it when I first suggested Gormenghast to him. It's like walking into a hazy labyrinth. It's pure.
Is it a bit like Piranesi in the sense that it's mysterious and it's this big house that's got strange things going on, and Gormenghast is a little bit like that, or?
It's like that, except it's less. It's like think about like a stuffy, like a like a ruined castle with like vines, and like the prose is like so dense and so dark. It's like gothic melancholy. It's like quintessential sort of. It's one of my favourite. I'm sepulchre on most websites and all that sort of stuff. So I love that book.
That's a good advertisement for that book, because I think it's a trilogy, is it?
It's a trilogy, yeah. Except only the first 2 books are good.
Okay, so 2 books to read then, I guess. Get that written down. Gormenghast.
I do.
Gormenghast. Actually, just on your in terms of your immersion question, Gormenghast is probably, I would say it's actually
too immersive.
Gormenghast is probably harder to get into the Silmarillion.
So in
terms of pure, it's
in terms of immersion,
so it's like it's hard to
it's
enter
hard to,
the lab
once you get into it,
once you're into it,
yeah. Because there could be a single page. This is like a good advertisement, but there could be a single page of Titus drawing something, and there might be like a page of him pontificating on the colour blue or something like that. It sounds a bit pretentious, but it's pure. There's characters like Sourdust and Deadyawn. It's like very lethargic and it's so good. It's so good. I make.
I understand that it might have a certain kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, it's also considered
That's
one
an
of.
important
Oh
part
yeah, it's pure atmosphere.
immersion.
It's pure atmosphere. It's considered one of the most reputed books of the sort of gothic fantasy genre.
That's very exciting. That excites me, to be honest.
It's
same actually. It does really interesting. To be honest, whenever you first described it to us, I've always been quite interested.
I can tell you.
So.
It actually has almost. There's very little things that are explained. It's all about unexplained rituals, and it reminds me of Dark Souls in a.
I was going to say, well, we're both in the Elden Ring at the moment, the game, and that's very obscure. It doesn't really point things out to you. So
I just get happy when I think of Gormenghast. To be honest, so the third book is one of the worst books I've ever read.
So I was going to say, in a sentence or two, why is it so bad? Is it just because it's disappointing and because the first 2 were so good, it's even worse?
No. So did you read? Just wondering. Did you watch my review for that? It was a long time ago.
Yes, I've seen it twice. I've seen it twice, maybe 3 times.
The third book is.
But I can't remember.
It's the author's mental health statement.
Yeah. He it's basically a sci-fi novel where there's like animal cars, and it actually just it takes Gormenghast and just obliterates it basically. It's very strange.
Is it harrowing because you're like almost witnessing the author's
there are things. Yeah. No,
mental.
That could be a good point about the book, but for me it's just pure negative because it's like it feels like it ruins like the characters.
Yeah, I meant harrowing in like a negative way.
Oh, alright. I thought you meant that might
almost like he's destroying his own world.
No, yeah, definitely, yeah.
That's very interesting, yeah.
Because Titus, I'll just say, because...
What's the first and second book called?
Oh, sorry, so yeah, it's a kind of complicated thing actually. The first book is called Titus Grown. The second book is just called Gormenghast. It's called Gormenghast, but it's just...
And then the third's Titus Sloan.
Titus Alone.
Titus Alone. Is the second book comparable to the first?
The second book is my favourite.
Okay. So it's a 2-book
series.
Oh no,
the first one's brilliant, and then the second one's even better.
Does it conclude well, the second book?
The second book, that's the thing.
That's a good question.
That's the thing. The second book concludes brilliantly.
So it's fine to read.
It's fine to read. Yeah, I sort of forced myself to read Gormenghast. The Titus Alone. But yeah, we're going on a little bit Gormenghast, so we probably should.
Sorry, I just want to know one more question about it. Do you roughly remember how long the series is from the 2 books?
The problem is, so I read it on Kindle. It's hard to tell, but I actually think that it might be.
Just roughly, because I actually don't know if it's for instance.
It's not like Brandon Sanderson level.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's a large or it's quite.
I would say standard, maybe like 300.
Okay.
300
like 2 of these.
Yeah. Oh, so it's more like 300. It's like standard book. I think.
Yeah.
Okay. That to me is standard book.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
Well. Yeah. Oh yeah, good.
So that's good. That's a good question, Steve. I'm very interested to read Gormenghast.
To be honest,
trilogy.
That was one of the ones that when you finish that, and you get back to Tolkien, you do all this other stuff that I want you to do. Go on, I guess.
Well, we could talk about the books that I'm planning to read next. We've actually got them here.
Oh yeah, that's actually one of my questions.
So the books that I'm planning to read next, and I will get round to them at some point. So we've got The King of Elfland's Daughter. The last book I was reading was Marcus Aurelius' Meditations.
Did you start it?
I started it, unfortunately, I read the very long preamble, the history of Roman philosophers and emperors and things. I got to book 2. Unfortunately, I just kind of didn't give up, but stopped. But I know it's one of those things where it's fairly easy to get back into, and I can just read a passage or 2.
Yeah, so the problem is, I have this weird thing where I want to read books fully, like cover to cover.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't particularly feel like this is a book that I would need to finish before I move on.
For me though, I genuinely, I don't generally like to have books on my shelf that are just like a reference book where I go, oh, I just want to read. This is that. If there's a book that is like that, it's meditation.
Well, that's what I think. Yeah, I think I can
for
pick
me,
that up, get a few words of wisdom.
Yeah. This is exactly. I believe. Yeah, the ideal
actually,
way to read this book is not to read page to page.
Which is exactly what I did.
Fair
Because I do this weird thing where it's like I haven't read it fully.
I've actually seen in a bookstore that meditations, but in like little pocket form, pocket books, so you can just pick it out and go, oh, there's how to live your life better.
I mean, it's literally a repetitive diary that he wrote to himself.
Yeah.
So it is intended to be. It's almost intended to be read as how he would write it.
Yeah.
So a passage, maybe a couple, 2, 3 a day.
You've both read it. Eventually, at the end, how the repetitiveness as a feature. How did you actually find it? Was it agonising?
I'll be honest, because I like to read things cover to cover.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I kind of almost want to get it done.
Yeah.
I already knew the tenets of Stoicism.
I wouldn't be surprised if you read it cover to cover. I wouldn't be surprised if you were coming up to a passage that was like, well, it's the 10th time.
If I'm being honest, it's one of those things where I would read it
just worded
and just sort of like quickly get past it and then just read the next one.
Did you ever skip, or did you? Because I know you've got this thing where you do need to the completionist. Did you read every single paragraph or skip?
Yeah, I never skip anything in books. Well, apart from like maybe appendices, but I never really skip. I feel like I've not read the book unless I've read most of the text in it.
As you said, this is certainly like a reference book.
Definitely.
It's a reference book, yeah.
So, I'm not going to go on to that next. I'll go on to King of Elfland's Daughter.
Oh, and sorry, can I ask, just go back quickly to one of my questions earlier. Just, obviously, Frankenstein's one of my favourite books. And
as is mine.
It's still stuck with you, hasn't it?
Yes, more so the middle parts and the end, but I love Frankenstein.
It's one of those things, sort of the image of the creature and what he stands for and whatnot.
Some of the language in this book is incredible as well.
Yeah. And did you read Frankenstein?
No, it is my intention. I do own a copy, but I've not read yet.
Yeah.
No.
So we've got Piranesi, which I've already read. The Fall of Gondolin by Tolkien.
So you actually got me that, didn't you? For another birthday, I think.
And you've read this?
I attempted to. Did I say that? I think I attempted to read it. Oh no, I mistook this for Book of Lost Tales Part 2.
Mm.
The problem is, because I've read 11 Tolkien books, there's a lot of repetition in these books, and I felt like this is just. It's actually. If I read this, I would have read Tale of Tuor about 4 or 5 times. So.
Because that's the most comprehensive, but you're going to be reading a lot. It's like Children. It's like that's Children of Húrin, but you get Children of Húrin in the Silmarillion, but like a more condensed version. So you've read, for example, like the most expanded.
So there's a lot of repeated tales of Tolkien.
I don't know if I will read this anytime soon because I might need to go through the Silmarillion again.
Yeah. I'm not surprised because I always viewed as you've said, the Silmarillion is kind of. It's like an encyclopedia of the whole world's history, while these books are more deep dives into. Yeah,
and they go through like notes and all that sort of stuff. It's very. The problem with Tolkien is that it's once you've read the tale, it's more a case of it's for people who love different renditions of the different versions of the text and how it develops. So I actually.
Would you ever read this? Because that's bound to have, like you say, details that you've never come across before.
The problem with that is like, I might read it, but it's because like I think I've read the most developed version of the tale of Tuor Goes to Gondolin, isn't it? Yeah. Was in Unfinished Tales, and even then I think I'd read it 2 times before that. So it's
surely not more developed in the standalone book.
No, I'm saying the last one I read was.
Well, I think you said by mistake maybe that it was the most developed.
No, at the time, I know that's obviously more developed. It's just that I would find it very hard to read that based on.
Is a book like this, Tolkien's own words,
Mostly
collected and then ordered by Christopher, or is it Christopher's own prose?
I believe that would mostly be
using Tolkien's notes.
Mostly be.
Oh God! So that's like a question that is. It's edited by Christopher. So it's like it's a mishmash of Tolkien's notes, and some of it, like half a page might be a paragraph from Tolkien, and Christopher tries his best to meld it in with the other notes that he can find or something. So I'd maybe say half and half, but I've honestly got no clue.
I would say that this, unfortunately, is going to be. Well, it's not going to be read in a long time, I think, because obviously I really want you to get back into like Unfinished Tales, and then Unfinished
Tales feels harder to me to get into because it's a collection of Unfinished Tales, and I kind of want to just get into a standalone. Here's the tale of the fall of Gondolin.
The problem is though that Unfinished Tales would be all new information. It expands the lore.
But I feel like that's almost like getting into the Silmarillion again.
I'm just saying it's more crucial in the grand scheme of things. It's more crucial. I know that's easier, but it's like more crucial.
Well, I'll have a deep think about it before I even start talking again.
A final Tolkien question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah. Okay.
Ask as many Tolkien questions as you want.
Would you ever recommend that I read the Silmarillion?
I think that's.
Well, we've been trying to get you to read it for a long
Have
time.
you really?
Well,
you've never actually really pushed that much.
Because I think we know that it's quite hard for most people that aren't massive Tolkien nerds.
Yeah, so. Obviously you can find reviews that just say like, get a study guide and all this sort of stuff.
Personally, I don't think you would enjoy it. Not because you don't appreciate some good stuff about fantasy and all that, but just because it is so dense. Sometimes you're reading like, this character died.
You did tell me that the Silmarillion is a lot of the Silmarillion, maybe the majority of it, is very similar to the first chapters in Children of Hurin.
Where it just says Hador Goldenhead was the son of Hurin,
and then this important character fought in the battle and he died.
It's about the grand scheme of things.
Listen, it is like that, and then there's like a tale that'll last for about 10 pages, and then it's like, honestly, it's a mix of different levels and
I'm
lengths
very
of
interested in tackling it, but maybe with not the intention to read it.
Listen. The thing is,
I think so. Just quickly, I think you could gain a lot from reading like the first 3 pages, and like this is the creation story of how Arda, Middle Earth, was created. I think you'd get something from that.
I think I was actually, when you were speaking there, I was thinking. I was thinking you could potentially read the trilogy, which you've never read. You've never read the trilogy.
That's
however,
so true.
I think that's something you need to do before you die.
Yeah. That's something you need to do before you die, right? But the Silmarillion is actually probably less work overall, believe it or not, than
the Lord of the Rings.
And it's a lot. It's actually, even though it's
the Lord of the Rings is an emotional journey.
Yeah, it's much more personal. However, the Silmarillion is like. It's almost less. It's less effort because you can just. It's aloof.
You don't need to read the Silmarillion like I read the Silmarillion, where every single page I was going on my computer and writing down massive timelines and notes and
I
stuff.
could just read it, and if some things go over my head, they go over my head.
That's fine, because in the end you will understand the story. You don't need to know what happened to this guy's brother.
No.
But because Fëanor in the end will do something important, and that's all you need to know.
This is the problem. I'm just leading on to more and more because you brought up Lord of the Rings. My issue with Lord of the Rings, the reason why I haven't read it,
I know why.
It's because of the movies.
Oh right, okay.
No, it's because of the films. It's because I have this strange aversion in my head where I think that because I've watched the movies, I know the story. And my question was, how much of the story and the moment to moment is?
For me,
I have this view where only half of it is in the book, and there's many things that happen that do not.
It's the way it's told, and you're reading Tolkien's actual thoughts and how he describes it. So it's like it's a different experience to literally just Peter Jackson.
It's like a reinterpretation.
Did you ever get even slightly emotional when you were watching the trilogy at all?
Of course, multiple times. I mean,
So I can only really say that it's more.
That's a good
it's
point.
more
Maybe it's because we're more
personal.
connected to it, but I tear up a lot when I'm watching the trilogy. I've never teared up more from. I'm getting goosebumps now. I never teared up more from a book than the end of the Return of the King. So that might be worth.
Yeah. It's
reading
like
it.
because you're actually going on the journey.
This is something I love about books. Break!
I think you're
Were you tearing up?
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
That's something to keep in the video.
Yeah. I guess it's something you said. Anyway.
You need to tell me later so you don't actually burst into tears.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a powerful recommendation. What you were saying about the journey, and you go on the journey in the book. This is one of my favourite things about books is if it can replicate that feeling that the characters feel. So the journey is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Where if you feel like just an act of reading every experience you have in it, you feel like you've joined them through the whole journey.
I mean, you get it more than the film because you're reading the book for longer than you're watching the film.
And
You get the thoughts of real thoughts of Frodo as he's on his journey.
You are actually one of the. You're in the party of.
I was about to say in the way
You're in the fellowship, really.
Obviously, with anything, it's like it's the difference between watching a series and a film. You're always going to be more invested in the series than the series is longer.
Yeah,
obviously.
definitely.
Yeah.
Little Tolkien tangent there, but I enjoyed that.
I've actually got something for you. Or are you going?
I was just going to go for the last two books that I've got to read. So I've got Stephen Fry's Mythos here, where he just talks about Greek. I'm a terrible reader, and it's hard to get into things. But so I'm probably like a few pages into this, but I will finish
this is
it.
very accessible though.
Yeah.
Have you attempted this? Or?
No, but I've been interested in it.
So it's a retelling of the Greek myths in quite a funny way. I've laughed a few times. Just
I heard it's comparable to Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology.
You've read that.
Norse mythology. Yeah.
You read that, didn't
Yes.
So I would say.
Have you read this?
I've not read it.
No.
Because
there's stuff like this. Your trousers began as chaotic atoms, and it says, "In time you will abandon your trousers. Not now, I hope." But it's just like he makes it
it's more
a little bit
personal.
amusing.
More
But
personal. The thing about that for me is I'll probably not read that. I like Stephen Fry as a person, but I've read like a bigger, more sort of serious compendium. Like I think it's like Hamilton's Greek mythology or something like that. It's just called mythology.
But do you not think?
There's something to say about that. Yeah.
Do you not think a book written in that way is maybe a good supplement to retain more information? Because I find books like that can help you retain because you laugh. Because
that's the whole point. I think it's like through the medium of sort of comedy.
It's an interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting juxtaposition that you can retain more information from something that is less scholarly.
No, of course, if you're enjoying
I don't want to bring it into games at all, but just talking about Greek mythology, like Stephen says, there's a game called Hades where it's unfortunate that now when I think about Hades from Greek mythology, I think of the game character. But just to say that,
you can sort of encapsulate that by saying it's the thing. If you're really enjoying it, you'll remember it more, and laughter and all that.
It's all about creating experiences.
Yeah,
and it's distilled into a little book.
I wasn't saying that that's like a bad thing to read, based compared to what I read. It's just that I think I'll never read that.
They're just two different things. That's condensed, and you've read the proper.
Yeah.
Just quickly, the last book that I'm planning to read. This is a completely random book.
I still don't know what this book is because I've only seen
it's a completely random book that I went to the bookstore and I just picked up. I went, oh, Darren Brown's a good guy. And I started reading it and I was like, I've got no intention to buy this. And I went, wait a minute, this is actually quite good. It's called A Book of Secrets by Darren Brown, the magic guy.
What's his actual occupation again?
He's an illusionist, but he's obviously like a skeptic illusionist. It is called A Book of Secrets, Finding Solace in a Stubborn World. It goes through Stoicism.
This reminds me of sort of like a memoir plus the William Irving book. Get to the Good Life. Did you read that?
Yeah.
I think you read
well,
that.
he talks about that. I think he talks about that in here.
Did he write Happy?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
did not like that book.
Did you not like
I
it?
did not like his
that-
interpretation of
Stoicism.
Stoicism at
Yeah.
all. I
Oh.
believe he interpreted it almost wrong.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
in his own way, so it's not
Do
really
you know?
wrong.
Do you know
but
why
it's-
actually? Do you know what the main problem with that was? So, like how he.
I can't remember. I read it a while ago.
That's kind of put me off
But-
on this. But
But that doesn't mean that
Oh.
this book isn't.
it's newer, so hopefully he's learned a little bit. If you think
It's not
he's
just
not.
that, but Happy was very specific about his interpretation of Stoicism and how he applied it to his
This is
life.
very
and it
general.
just
I
did
think
not,
this is
it
general.
did not relate to me. That's the problem I had with it.
So there's chapters like suffering, shyness. He talks about introversion, stoicism.
I think it's worth a read.
It looks generally.
I don't regret reading Happy because I think it's interesting to get other people's perspectives on
So,
the philosophy.
This opening sentence here really drew me in because it's obviously going to be very personal. It says, "I was punched repeatedly in the head by Andy Hunt and James Ward when I was 15." So you know what kind of book it's going to be. He's talking about his troubles and stuff like
Trauma
that.
and the techniques he's used to cope.
Certainty in taking offence. So there's a bunch of stuff here. So something to read
Yeah.
after all those other ones.
Yeah,
Or-
I mean, that's a good question about non-fiction in a bit, but one of the things I think is key to sort of getting into reading, I've mentioned this before a few times, is short stories. Now I've said this quite a few times, I think.
Okay, give me some short stories to read because I,
So the thing is, so I think both of you obviously, and myself included, sometimes I find it difficult to read. Especially when I'm having troubles with writing and stuff. It's all connected to me, so I won't read as much. But a short story is a perfect form. It's obviously short for a start. It's like you're entering this. You can step through a gateway to this whole other world for maybe like 9 pages.
So this leads on to a really interesting question. I am a little bit of a short story skeptic because I haven't.
I write short stories for.
Yes, I know, but it's- for the time I don't know. For something for me, it's like it's kind of distills that idea with the TV series, a movie versus
Yeah,
a
I
short
know,
story is
yeah.
kind of like a 10-minute film, a short
Yeah.
film kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you can have good experiences, great moments, great
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
But there's an investment issue that I do not.
But so how is that an investment if you're only spending 10 minutes? Do you mean the immersion level
Yeah,
at the end?
yeah. I guess it's like there's not enough time for the investment to build up for the hits to be even close to the
Okay.
same.
no, there's not the
as
same
a longer
expectations.
novel.
It's not the
No,
same expectation.
no.
You can
No.
still get something from any short form piece of media, but you're not going to get this. The time invested equals greater reward. So if you're investing less time, you can expect a lesser reward, but then you've invested less
And
time.
then there's an argument that
Now
because
keep-
it's so condensed,
Yeah.
you actually reap more rewards in the short time you've invested.
Now keep in mind,
time.
obviously I know you're talking about just the medium of short stories, but I was actually saying it's like a gateway drug or whatever, however you want to say it, to get into reading. Because obviously,
So
you know,
much-
if you want to read like a standard book, it's obviously a lot harder to get into than to just read
Yeah.
a short story. Because it's like looking at a painting for a little bit, and that would get you into the feeling of
I
reading
do see
more.
what you mean, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Is there a short story that I've read on your recommendation? Because if I,
Yeah,
did
yeah.
I,
Yeah.
what
Well,
was
you've
it?
read some of Lovecraft.
I read Dagon, but then now I'm thinking
No, you've read Nyarlathotep.
I can't remember.
So
But I'm trying to think, would Dagon make me want to read Piranesi if I hadn't already read Piranesi? Like, is it a gateway
that's
drug?
a good question.
I have
That's
an
not my
opposite.
question.
I had an opposite question, which was, what would be a short story you would recommend to someone to send them if you wanted to send them down a rabbit hole of reading short stories? What would be the gateway
Well, the
drug of
problem
short
is I've read
stories?
literally hundreds of them. So,
I know there's like Clark Ashton Smith short
Yeah.
stories. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
up for any sort of length of media. It's just that getting into it and
Well, that's what I
reading
mean.
is a harder.
It's just that getting into it, right?
I think I'm just lazy, to be honest.
It's just that getting into it. Even a flash story, I do some of those sometimes. That's it. It's easier to get into. So surely, because you can read these things on web pages in like 5 minutes. And it's at least training the reading muscle, as I said in another.
I can
video.
understand the training and reading muscle thing because
Yeah.
it was very slow going to get into Piranesi, and then as I was going further and further, it was easier to read.
I think we're of that generation where it's just YouTube videos and everything else, films and whatever. It's like
We'd both rather sit down and play Elden Ring.
It's much easier to get lost in reading articles, and going from quick things, as is the problem with a lot of people these days, I think.
I mean,
than to sit down with a book and get invested.
Yeah.
I mean, reading articles is probably too much for some people nowadays.
Which leads on to another question I wanted to ask, if that's okay, unless someone had something.
I'm all good.
No, I can't actually remember. I can't really pinpoint a specific short story for either of you at the minute. I probably could if I had like a list, but
yeah, that's okay. What I wanted to ask was, how would you, as by far the biggest reader here, how would you recommend to us to develop a better habit of reading, to read more?
one of those is obviously the short story thing.
And why is
so
that?
You'd recommend
Just
like a
because
short
you
story
think-
collection?
Because you
Say a short story collection.
Is that what you're suggesting?
No, so he's saying, how would you suggest to us to get into reading? And you say short
I
stories.
say one of those definitely by far. It's just, I said it too on that for one of the first vlogs that I ever did on this channel. I said short stories because you're reading text, and it's easier to get into. I could just link you.
There's a payoff quicker, and then you're hoping that payoff is going to
Oh,
allow us to get into a bigger book.
You'll eventually
But you don't
say.
particularly.
I don't mean that. I mean like how to develop a long-term love of reading.
Well, so that's the thing, isn't it?
I think that's that you just need to.
Because for me, I can develop a short-term love of reading. I can read a book and like love it,
Like
and go, I'll read another book and read another book, and then something interrupts. I don't read for a month. It's like square one again.
Isn't it like you with music
It's
as
gone.
well? Some similar thing to music.
Yeah,
Sort of.
yeah, in a way.
But the thing is, I would say, so here's my sort of trajectory for this, right? You don't read at all. I'll link you, this is hypothetical obviously, I'll link you a short story. You for 5 to 10 minutes or 15 or whatever it might be, you might love the atmosphere and the imagery and the way the words sound or whatever. You go, oh, I want to read another short story. And you'll continue, and then you might even get.
But so Stephen's talking about very long term.
No, and then but surely.
Well, here's another way. How did you? Because you never always read.
No.
So what changed? What was the changing point for you that made
I
you
read,
become?
but it sounds silly though because I read books that I loved, and
I think it's simple. It's either, I think, I'm worried that it takes a certain sort of person.
Actually, no, that's a good
and you
point.
may be the certain
That's
sort of
actually a
person.
good point. I've said multiple times to various people, I think, even you, probably even you, Stephen, that I even did a video on this channel where I said something like, you have to want to appreciate other creations, and you like for non-fiction you want to know intrinsically more knowledge, and it's sort of the same sort of thing with
So you're saying the
with
more
fiction.
you read, the more you appreciate getting into somebody else's
You have-
mind. The only answer is that you need to read more, and then you will build up a love for
And
it.
the way you can read more is by reading little shorter stories.
You need to break through
over
this
time.
barrier where you really appreciate books.
And I just want to clarify as well that it takes me 2 weeks to find a book. I don't think I read a lot, to be honest, especially compared to a lot of people. I barely read at all.
Is reading environment important to you?
Yes. Yeah.
So do you have a ritual?
I can only read on my bed. I can
Lying down,
I'll actually
or
read
sitting?
lying down sometimes. I've got like tinnitus and a variety of problems, so it's kind of harder to read sometimes. But I cannot read at all when there's like noise.
See, that's admirable. That makes me feel bad because you've got some reasons that make it hard to read, like loud tinnitus or whatever, but tinnitus, whatever you say. And we still can't be bothered to read. But
Well, you've got problems with it.
I have to say,
we all have impediments to reading.
even there's one scenario where even if I could play games, watch a film, or do anything that I
You'd rather.
could have, maybe would rather do, I can't help but want to read a book if I am in a conservatory and it's raining.
Yeah,
In that
I mean-
specific example, I cannot resist books. I don't know
I think
why.
I'd rather still play Elden Ring. But
I mean, I'll probably end up still playing it.
Yeah.
That would just,
Have we covered all our questions?
I've still got two.
All right.
No, I've got one.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I've got one final question for you two. This is it's a very talked about question, very divisive as well. Can you be said to have read a book if you listen to the audiobook only?
That's a complicated question. I think.
Can you be an avid reader if you only ever listen to audiobooks, or is
Right.
there real experience through reading?
I think I'm actually going to be okay. So listen to this. I think I've always held the belief that listening to an audiobook is not real reading.
Okay.
I think that's might be to actually make myself feel better about the fact that I'm putting the effort in to read the text, because I think it's a lot harder to read the text than to listen to an audiobook, right?
Yep.
But I'm fully aware that I could have listened to 1,000 books by now, easily.
I do agree with you that when you say read, you have to have reading is a verb.
Yeah.
So reading the book, but you're also still experiencing the book through somebody else telling it to you, because telling a tale at a campfire.
It's the same
that's
thing.
one way of telling a tale.
Yeah. So I think yes, you have experienced the book, you have read it, but it's a slightly different interpretation because you're reading it through the lens of a person that didn't write the book, unless it's the author.
And they're
changes the voice of
they're
it.
If
putting
it's a
their own
different
spin.
person, there's different connotations to the way they can anything. they can say.
Also, when you read a book, it's not just the author's as well. It's your own personal interpretation of it.
Yes.
You'd be like listening to a person speak the words and change emphasis into different.
You're arguably listening to another person's interpretation as they read the book.
Yeah.
So, for example, and it's not the best book in the world, but I started reading Eye of the World from Wheel of Time series.
Great audiobook.
And I went on to the audiobook in the end. Can I have been said to have read Wheel of Time, Eye of the World?
Recently, or do you mean?
Long time ago.
I think yes, personally. I think I don't think it's a huge barrier. Like, I
then
don't
would
think
you
it
say-
matters enough.
But then would you call yourself a reader if then you did only audiobooks of the Wheel of Time series?
Put it this way: if you sat down with somebody and they'd read every book that you'd read, but they'd
You would still
listened to
know
it
the
through
same thing,
audiobook,
you would still know
you
the
would
same
still
thing.
be able to have the same discussion as if they'd read them.
I'm agreeing.
But they wouldn't have the same experience.
I'm agreeing with Stephen, but I fundamentally, it may just be snobbery or the fact that I've put in loads of effort to read difficult text. It's different. It's a different mental process.
I agree with that.
harsh text.
I honestly think I actually
I don't-
err on the side of that you've not read the book,
Yeah.
but it's a similar experience, but it's not the
Like,
same.
I, for example, when Richard was reading Gormenghast, listening to Gormenghast, he started off reading it, right?
Yeah.
But because it's harder to read, he went to the audiobook.
Interesting. I would have
So,
thought it would be
here's-
harder
When the
with
when
difficult prose. With challenging prose, I thought it would be harder to listen to it. I feel like your comprehension is better when you read than when you listen.
I'd disagree.
Personally.
I'd disagree.
Personally.
Is-
I find it can
is
go
it-
over my head.
is it about the author's intent, because they write it not to be spoken aloud? If it was, it would be a play.
Yeah,
So
that's part of that. All right, so I think we're going to end it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Did you guys enjoy that?
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Good time. Yeah, I wasn't really sure what to expect when we went into this, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a good chat. Good.
We may do an update in the future once we've read a few more books ourselves.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
However,
Yeah.
Not in person. I think
Not
it'll be
in person,
over
Yeah.
online call because we stay far apart.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so thanks for watching, everyone. Till next time. Cheers.